Hi guys, and welcome to this new lecture. In this lecture, what we'd like to do is to focus on the motion path, how to manipulate the motion path, and how to use the graph editor to create motion that is somehow very smooth and very intriguing maybe sometimes. So we will go through the motion path altogether, and also we'll go through the graph chart. For example, if you press U here, you will see the graph, for example, for the position, how to use roving keyframes, how to ease frames, how to ease them in, ease them out, and the multiple kind of keyframes that we'll have. For example, the keyframe interpolation, if it is interpolation that is temporal or interpolation that is spatial, and how to use the Bezier, the linear, and so on. So there is quite some learning here, and it's extremely important that you learn these motion path techniques, because it will make a difference between a good animation, a smooth animation, and an abrupt animation that nobody wants to see. Then we will move on to create our challenge or to execute our challenge. For example, the challenge is over here. Okay, this is a simple challenge, but also notice the animation is pretty useful. It will teach you how to use the spatial and temporal graphs that you use most of the time. It's not just about pressing F9 and getting easy ease. It's also about learning how to manipulate the path, what is the graph editor, and how to create animations that are smooth and quite attractive. So the learnings in this section are very important, and you need to focus. You need really to give it great attention. Don't take it for granted that you know about the graph chart. It does not finish in 1 or 2 lectures. It has a whole section for you really to upgrade your skills, to understand the parameters or the options that you have in After Effects. Hopefully you will focus very much on this section, and I will see you inside with the first lecture. Hi guys, hopefully you're doing very well in this course, and if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section of the dashboard of this course. Please do not hesitate to ask any question you have. It is important that you understand everything in this course and you become a master motion graphics designer or artist even. In this lecture, we want to tackle motion path. Motion path is the most important concept in animating in After Effects. You don't understand this one very well, then your animation will always be basic. Let's look at the simple animation I have created. It's just a circle, and the anchor point is in the middle, and it's moving along a path. That is a motion path. Notice that it is only the anchor point that moves on the path, not the whole layer. The whole layer is connected to the anchor point, and the anchor point moves on the motion path. Here you are, you can see it there. If you change the position of the anchor point, then the whole movement or the whole appearance of the shape will also change. The first thing I want you to do is to come to Edit. If you are on the Apple, come to File and go to Preferences. Go to General Preferences. In this dialog box, you have very many options, but the only options that we are interested in now is the default spatial interpolation to linear. It means set default spatial interpolation to linear. Here you have 3 important words, I would say. Spatial, that is in space, is not in time. Interpolation is how the movement is going to occur, and linear, it means like a line, straight. So set this default, tick it here and say OK. And this is how I've been working all along since the beginning of the course, because I do not want to have any curved motion path. We will see about that. So this is your motion path you have created through using keyframes. Here in between 2 keyframes, there is 1 second in time. You notice it just jumps from 0 to 1 and jumps again to 1. So this is on purpose. Why? We are working on 25 frames per second. So in between the 2 keyframes, there is 1 second. So there is 25 frames. The big square here is a keyframe, and the small dots are frames. If you zoom in your timeline, you will find out that you have frame 1, 2, 3, and so on. If you move in between frames on the timeline, also spatially, in the space, it will move from one frame to another. So when you run the animation, this object or its anchor point is moving from one frame to another until it gets to the second keyframe. And that is what's interpolation. Let's explore this motion path. First of all, I can click on any keyframe and move it. So notice now I am moving the motion path. I'm changing the motion path. I am changing it spatially. In the timeline here, that is the temporal. This is about time. Nothing is changing. Spatial is about the shape or how the motion path is drawn. I can change it any way I want if I hold the keyframes. If now I come to the timeline, I will be changing in time, which we call here temporal. Let's say I make these two keyframes very near each other, and of course I widen the distance or the time in between these two keyframes. So notice what happens on the motion path. Because the time here is bigger and the distance is still the same, then you have more frames in between the keyframes. And because here the time in between is shorter, then you have less frames. When you have more frames, the speed is slow. It has to jump for every single frame until it gets to the second one. And of course, this is seen through the timeline here. When you have few frames, then the jumping is quite fast. Let's run a RAM preview and see it. We see it's slow here, speedy, slow, speedy. Okay, that's not the rule. It's not always like this. We can change that. We can make almost the same time here and here. We'll see that using roving keyframes. So if I change the time here, the shape of the motion path does not change. In other words, if I do a temporal change, then the spatial aspect of the motion path will not change. So when you're looking at the motion path and looking how it's drawn, this is the spatial aspect. If you're looking at the timing in between keyframes and how long it's going to take to cross the whole motion path, you are in temporal. And that is a very big distinction. And these two will make you understand how motion paths work. Let's take a keyframe, any keyframe, and just right click on it and go to Keyframe Interpolation. You notice here we have two interpolation, the temporal interpolation and the spatial interpolation, and we have the roving. The roving is a mixture of both of them, the temporal and the spatial. If we come here, temporal interpolation is here in the timeline. Spatial interpolation is here in the shape of the motion path. In the next lecture, I will take the spatial interpolation and explain to you all the different options you have, and it's truly very amazing. See you then. Hi guys, this is Loai with you, and we are into a new lesson about motion path, and we are going to explore today the spatial interpolation. Now, spatial interpolation is pretty easy, by the way, and lots of fun. You can come to animation and use keyframe interpolation here, or you can right click on any keyframe and use keyframe interpolation. I will select all my keyframes. Now you know they are linear, spatial, and temporal. I will right click and go to keyframe interpolation. I will change here in the spatial. I will go from linear to Bezier. I would really like it if you open your After Effects, if you have the possibility, and play with me. I will click OK. Now notice what happened. I have a nice path now with a lot of handles and so on. This is the Bezier path. So it is all curved. It's very nice. But I have more options here. There are the handles for every keyframe. In Bezier path, the handles are independent. You can move them around the way you want, each one of them. They are not connected. We will see somewhere else where they will be connected. Now I am spatially designing the path or changing the path or even messing it up. You notice that in the time here, nothing is being changed. There is no modification in the timeline. See, it's only the shape, the spatial, that is changing. If I run a play, I deselect and run a play, now my motion path is totally different. So this is the Bezier. Let's go back and use animation, keyframe interpolation, and return it to linear so you can see the next option and you notice the difference much better. I will choose all the keyframes just for the sake of the example and go to keyframe interpolation. And from spatial linear, I will go to spatial continuous Bezier. And I click OK. Now, continuous Bezier, it seems to you it's like Bezier, but really it's not if you do these modifications. If you click on the handle, you notice the handles are always parallel to each other. That is continuous Bezier. So they move together. Now, it has its use, and it's actually, this is the one I use most because it avoid the trouble of moving two of them, and then the path here is created differently. So now I created a new spatial path. You notice in the temporal, nothing has changed. I still have the same timing and the same time in between keyframes. Nothing has changed. Here you are. You have a new spatial design for your motion graphic. Let's go back and reset this one to linear. I'll bring it back to linear. Then we go back to again, and from spatial we're gonna take auto Bezier. Auto Bezier will smoothen. If you notice this, it's more smoothed here. If you try to move the handles, usually they are transparent. They don't want to show all the handles, but you will go back to continuous Bezier here. Like you see, you can modify your path. Of course, you can move the keyframes. You can select one keyframe here and move it anywhere you want. You still have this ability. Now you know how to create a motion path that is very interesting. For example, if I delete all these keyframes and I have only 3 keyframes here, and if I go to interpolation and say, okay, make it for me here, just continuous Bezier, that's my favorite, then I can turn my graph and make it quite beautiful. You see what's happening here. It's pretty nice, by the way you can change everything. Cool. Here you are. Now you have a new motion path, and whoop, the ball falls down. So this is the way to do it. You notice nothing happens in the timeline here. In the next lecture now, we'll look at temporal, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. See you then. Hi guys, and welcome to aeschoolonline.com. In this lecture, we want to continue exploring the motion path and looking at temporal interpolation. Mainly, we are going to explore the easy ease in and ease out. Using the graph and selecting all your keyframes and making them, for example, all Bezier or auto Bezier, and then manipulating the speed is a good technique, not bad, but it's very complicated and it takes a lot of time. Fortunately, we have better ways to do that. If you come to your keyframes here, let's say we select all of them, you right click on a keyframe and you go to Keyframe Assistant. You have 3 options: easy ease, easy in, and easy out. I will start with easy in, and notice the shortcut is F9. If I click on easy ease, the shape of the keyframes will change, and then you can go to your graph and notice it has done it for you. It has created some smooth graphs. So now you have your graph, and you can start manipulating your graph and moving the keyframes the way you want. So it starts slow, like you can see, go fast, and drops down in speed. You can also try this one, for example. It goes slow and then goes very fast out. Here you are. So using the easy ease, it has simplified a lot. You get your graph drawn and you can manipulate them. And notice these are Bezier keyframes, not continuous Bezier. And you can have anything you want. Fine, let me select all of them and return them to linear. The easy ease graph is composed of ease out and ease in. If you select your first keyframe, you would want to ease out of this keyframe. And this is why you can use ease out. Notice how the keyframe here has changed to a kind of arrow towards the left. Now, the last keyframe, you want to ease into that keyframe or ease in. So you use the ease in, and you notice how it starts at a high speed and then goes down very slowly. We look at the keyframe if it has changed like an arrow to the right. The middle keyframe here, you want to choose it, and first you want to easy it in. That's for the left side, so it is in, and for the right side it want to easy it out. And here you are back to the same graph of selecting all the keyframes and making an easy ease for all of them. If you look at your timeline now, you notice this is out, this is this is in, and this is how you will work. Let's select all the keyframes and then press Ctrl and click on one of them. Then they will return to, linear completely. Let's go back here. Usually we will select all our keyframes, right click and go to Keyframe Assistant and say Easy Ease, or select all our keyframes and just press F9. They have been all easy eased. Then go to the graph, and here you are, you do the manipulations that you want. It's pretty easy and pretty simple. But bringing you here in the beginning would have meant that you don't understand how this graph is operating and what is spatial and what is temporal interpolations. In the next lecture, we are going to use temporal and spatial interpolation to create an amazing graph for our little ball here. Hi guys, this is Lai with you from aeschoolonline.com, and I welcome you to this lecture where we are going to put together and use spatial and temporal interpolation. And it's gonna be like fantastic. Our aim here is to create a motion path for the ball that is pretty nice. I want to show you something before. I want to add some keyframes here, but I really don't care about where to come in the timeline. So to add keyframes, what I can do is to come to the pen tool. Choose the pen tool and come here, and you notice it's giving me a plus. So I can click and move it. So immediately now it's a continuous Bezier. That's quite nice. And if I keep on moving the handles, it will be in Bezier, but not for long. It will go back to continuous Bezier. So I will choose all my keyframes. Let's adjust one of them. This one, let's bring it here and here. Come to animation, keyframe interpolation, and then in the spatial here, I will use, for example, continuous Bezier for all of them. I will click OK. Here you are, you have a continuous Bezier, but first let's choose our selection tool, and I can manipulate the path the way I want. For example, let's do it that way. Let's move this keyframe here, and we have a double bouncing here. Let's move this one to the top. This is the good thing about, continuous Bezier. So I have this nice path here. Let's make this one cool. Let's play it, and you notice that it's moving and there is no temporal effects at all. I will select them all, press F9 and make them all easy eased. I will come to the graph and decide exactly how I want the movement to go. Let's say in the beginning here we wanted to start slow, pretty slow. It will go in pretty fast. Then here it will just move slowly on the curve and speed up to the next point, and the next point here it will really go pretty fast to exit. Here you are. Now if I play it, that's one. We can also change this, for example, to bring it to this way, and notice we have a totally different animation and a totally different graph. Let's unclick and stop it and play again. Not bad. So you notice the manipulation, how it happened. Now we have all our keyframes that are easy eased. You notice this one. So this is what you will be doing. You will be actually drawing your path, going to spatial, designing the path the way you want it, and then going to temporal and designing what kind of speed, Bezier, or whatever you want to be able to enable a nice motion path. Now maybe here I exaggerated a bit just to give you a good example, and that's it. That's how you are going to work. Now I went through the explanation and it's taken some time, but it's important that you understand this concept and design the path that you want. Let's take a very simple path now. Let's use this one. Let's hide this one and just write, motion graphic, motion only. And how will I design this motion path? I will go in the beginning here, press P, get the position, keyframe it, and move it to this side. Keyframe it, go after few frames, hold it and put it here, for example. Now you notice this is a path, is normal, is totally linear. So I will select my keyframes, go to animation and say keyframe interpolation, and go to spatial. Let's say continuous Bezier. Then I can design my path, for example. That's quite cool. Let's not make it come out of the screen. Cool. Now it's going at the constant speed, of course. I will come to the keyframes. I will choose both of them or click on position, press F9, and I have an easy ease. So the easy ease go to speedy and slow. If you run it, it's not bad at all, by the way. Cool. Now we can make it like bouncing a bit. Comes in the middle, speedier. If you run your animation, go back to the beginning. Cool. Let's deselect and run it. That's a nice one. So this is how you will combine spatial and temporal interpolation to create a very beautiful motion path. If you don't want always to come back to animation, go to interpolation and choose here spatial interpolation. What you can do is come to edit, go to preferences and use the general. And remember here we have default spatial interpolation to linear. Untick this one. Cool. So now when you create a motion, what will happen? You are immediately in Bezier or continuous Bezier, in fact. So you keyframe here. If you come after some time and you move it, you notice now you already have the handles and you can move it the way you want. Now I'm going to keep it that way. I'm going to keep it on continuous Bezier so we can manipulate the path the way we want, and it's quite cool like this. We can create some, curved path, and we can add now our easy ease, and we have something, quite good to work with. For example, here you are. Cool. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the practice and the challenge for this section. Hi guys, welcome to this new lecture. I'm Loai from aeschoolonline.com. I hope you already went to my website, hopefully, and found something interesting. If you didn't, please message me. I'm ready to do lots of things for you. In this lecture, we are going to explore the value graph. I will create a new composition. We call it value, for example, graph. And here we have always used the speed graph. Now we can go ahead and start using the value graph, and I will show you how it works and its limitations and what's tricky about it and what's beautiful. I'll create a rectangle, for example, here. Just a rectangle, a small rectangle. Cool. I will take the anchor point of the layer and put it on bottom of the rectangle. I'll position the rectangle very nicely. Fine. I want to create an animation with scale. I will open the scale, come in the beginning of the timeline, make it 0%, so it disappeared completely. In fact, this composition is too long. I will come, for example, to 4 seconds. That's enough. Press N to bring the work area end to my timeline indicator, and just right click and trim comp to work area, and it will be only 5 seconds. I will go to 1 second and make it 100%. I can select both keyframes and press F9 to make them easy ease, and then I can go to the graph. Also, I could have come to the graph here and selected them, and you make them busy. Make this one a bit bigger so we can see here. Zoom in just a bit. Cool. Now you notice the scale has 2 parameters, and I can see only one graph. If I remove the chain link, if I change now one value, you will notice that I have the red one moving up and down. So this is the graph for the first value, the X value. And if I change the value of the second one, you will notice that it is the green one that's moving up and down now and changing values. So now I have 2 graphs, one for the first value. As a rule of thumb, the red one is always the first value and the green one is the second value. So we want to return them the way they were. What I will do is just press alternate and the link. The first value is copied in the next value. I'll come back here. Also, I press alternate link, and the 2 values are identical. I put them back to 0, and I'm back to 1 graph. So the alternate link here, the alternate and click on the link, it will take the first value and copy it in the second, and this is a way to return them to their initial values. Fine. So now let's take the second keyframe, and we have the handles that we can move around. Notice what's happening to the rectangle when I move. We are moving the value of the scaling. You notice here the scaling is changing. If I want to have a small pop, for example, we can always play with the handles. Now notice what's happening here. The graph is coming up, but is going beyond 100% to 119 or 120, and then coming back to 100. So now your animation is a nice pop. Cool. Of course, it's very slow. You can also have two pops. Take this one up, if I remember well, and take this one down. Here you are almost there. So now you have two pops. Look at the value. It will grow and go under and then comes back. Notice if you play it. Cool. That's fine. These are the two pops technique. Now to do that with keyframes, it would have taken a lot of work. So this is how you can use the value graph. Let's go and work with some other shape. Let's stop the animation here. Let's take the rotation. Let's work with the rotation. I will take a circle and put it on the side here. Control Shift and open it. Now notice that the anchor point, I will leave it in the middle here. I will come to rotation, go to the beginning and keyframe the rotation, for example, at 0, come to 1, just for the sake of the example, and give it a full rotation. So now it's going to rotate 360 degrees or full rotation. I will select both of them and press F9, make them easy ease. Go to the graph. Now the graph here, of course, rotation has a single value. There are no two graphs. So you can move and see how you can create a pop here. So by changing the handles, you're changing the value of the rotation. Of course, we are in the value graph. And then here we are. So you notice how it's behaving. So it's rotating a full rotation and then going beyond. That is now 19 or 20 degrees beyond the full rotation and coming back to the full rotation. Here you are. Now this is a very interesting animation that you can always do. If you have the blur on, it will be very nice. Here you are. Fine. You can also start playing with it more. I don't know if you can do a double pop here. Okay. Maybe. See how it works. Cool. Take it down a bit here. This way, it's a long double pop, but it will work. So exactly, it's not double pop. It's just a hammer if you want. It's pretty cool. If you continue playing with it, adding a couple of keyframes, you can do this movement up and down. So actually, this is how the movement is done. Cool. Here you are with now two tricks, and very important tricks, how to use value graphs to give some life to your animation. Of course, I exaggerate a lot here. Let's stop the animation and do something else. So now let's see what we can do with value graph and position. I will take a circle, that will do. Put it here. And take the anchor point of the layer and put it in the middle of the circle. Fine. I will remove from graph here and I will open position. Keyframe the position in the beginning and go to 1 second. Use my selection tool, press V, and I'll go to the end. Fine. So now we have just a movement here. Let's go to the graph and stop that. And we go to the value graph. Now notice I have the two values. It's linear. So let's make it easy ease. We give them F9. That will become Bezier. And you see it's doing very well. Of course, we have two values. And like we said, the rule of thumb, the red one is the first value. That is this one. You see it's moving. And the second one is the Y value. That's the green one. If you move it, it will move. Now, it's very interesting. But now I don't have handles. There are no handles here. Well, it makes a lot of sense because the handles for a value graph for position are the handles of the motion path. It makes a lot of sense here because this is spatial and the position is always spatial. The position cannot work in time. You know, if moving, then you have the handles here. They cannot control the time. So you can use speed graph and it will be quite efficient now if you use the speed graph. Let's look at the value graph. And there is little change here, if none. But if you play with the handles on the graph, you notice that there are changes here in the graph and you can really manipulate them the way you want. So for position, you do not have Bezier keyframes here to be able to move it up and down. You will control that through the motion path and you'll do that in spatial. Fine, very nice. Let's go and do something else. For example, now let's take a layer, new, a solid layer. I'm gonna make the solid layer as big as the composition. Cool. I'm gonna open scale, keyframe it here, go after 1 second, for example, and keyframe it again. Go to the beginning, make it 0. choose all the keyframes, press F9, and they will become easy ease. Come to the value graph. We are in the value graph. Hold it. Of course, now we are doing scale, but I'm gonna keep it as one graph and start manipulating and see what happens. Now you notice here I chose this one because it will give you really what's happening. Now you notice there are a lot of things that you can do here. Now I went beyond the 100%, so it went outside the composition. But if you change it, for example, here, look at this one. Cool. Now we want return values. For example, notice here what's happening. It's gonna grow. And it's quite interesting, you know. Let's run it from the beginning. Cool. And you can change the values by playing with the graph handles. Okay. And you can have lots of interesting movement here, lots of interesting animations. This is very useful when you're doing transitions. Of course, I'm careless a bit now, and because I want to go speedy, we're already at 6-7 minutes. Let's see. That's what you can do. So now we have explored the value graphs, and we know its limitation, and we know exactly how it's going to operate. But using the value graph and using the spatial interpolation and the other graphs, you can really come up with something very beautiful. Your turn. Go to After Effects and start playing with this. Do not complicate your lives. Don't break it into 2 graphs. Make sure you have only 1 graph and try to play with it. Thanks for listening. In the next lecture, we'll see how to do some exercises. Hi guys, hope you're doing well. This is Loai with you from aeschoolonline.com. In this lecture and the next one, we are going to create our project for this section. Now the project spirit here is about using most of the information or most of the techniques and the methods that you have learned. It's not only about practicing for this section. You want to learn how to put what you learned into practice, and that is important. And this is the purpose of the project. This project is pretty easy, it's not hard. We are going to use pre-comps, masks, and of course the graphs, the speed graph and the value graph maybe. And we are going to use the shape and text that we have learned. Fine. Let's jump in and start creating our project. I will press on the tilde key or the apostrophe above the tab to go back to the normal view. Here you are. To start with the project, as usual, we are going to start to lay out everything that we need. You can see motion graphic, School Online, the small rectangle here, the square here, I would say, with the question mark, and try to match this at 100%. I will also introduce 1 or 2 new things just for you to be able to do, you know, better motion graphics. So this you will find in project 4, motion path. And now I'm gonna create outside for the lesson. I will create a new composition and we call it motion in course. So we are doing it in the course. We will take 720 by 25, the usual, 1280 by 720, and the background color is okay. It's the same background color used in the project. I'll click OK. Fine. Let's start by laying out our text. I'll click and write motion. And maybe I'll duplicate this one and make it bigger. So I will choose both of them and make them very big, around 122. Make them uppercase. Cool. Let's adjust the font here. Here we want Roboto bold. And we'll put it to bold, Roboto bold. That's cool. The second one, we want Roboto light. It's there. Let's change here to graphics. And we want to align them on the left. We'll open a line and align them on the left to each other. Let's get them, you know, near each other. That's fine. Let's create the AE School Online. I will replicate this one and go to character, make it much smaller, let's say 52, and make it thin or light. Will work, yes. And right here, AE School Online.com. So you're introducing your website here. I will remove the uppercase. It worked nicely, fine. Now they are all aligned. Okay, we make sure they are aligned even more. Here you are. Fine, I will take it up a bit. Now I want to create the line here. For that, I will create a solid layer. I will come to layer and say new solid layer. It's better than a rectangle. We want the color to be white. We want the width to be 6, that's cool, and the height to be 300. In fact, I was working here, and we click OK. That's our solid layer. We'll just put it over here. Let's remove the snapping, and cool. Fine. Then we have the small rectangle here we want to put. So I will choose the rectangle tool. I need to zoom in. I press alternate and zoom in here, and I will create my rectangle. It has a very big stroke that we don't need, and the fill we want to make it white. Okay, now we need to take care of its anchor point, which is over here. If you notice, just over here, I will take the pen behind and put the anchor point just on this side here. Cool. Now it seems to me is not very big. I will make it a bit bigger so it covers AE School Online, and make it maybe nearer. Here you are. You adjust it the way you want. Fine, this is done. Now we have our rectangle over here, or our square. I will click and get the rectangle tool, click and drag. Now I'm not gonna get it the same, so we need a rectangle. Fine, that's okay. We change the fill. We try to make it this nice color we used there. It's something like this. Cool. We wanted to add the stroke. Let's make the stroke, for example, 12. No, that's too much. Let's make it 10. Yeah, cool. Actually, this is a rounded rectangle, so I will come to the rectangle inside here, and I will go to the rectangle path, and you will find roundness. You can increase the roundness the way you want. And our rectangle should be a bit turned, so I will open the rotation and make it 45 degrees. And it's moving according to its anchor. Move the anchor and put it in the center. Let's snap it. Cool. I will select the selection tool and just try to put it in the middle here. Before animating, these are too squeezed. We will move them to this side. Let's see it at 100%. It will be nice to add some shadows here. So I will select the layers. I can use Shift to select all of them, or I can just create a lasso around them, and I will select the 3 of them. I will right click and go to layer styles and say drop shadow, and here you have very nice shadows. We will move on. Let's put the question mark here. Choose our text tool, click inside and type the question mark. Of course, we don't want to use the same font. Roboto, the exclamation mark, in fact, is not so interesting. Let's choose another font here. Salina will do. Of course, you can choose any font you want. Okay, that's fine. Let's make it bigger. Cool. The anchor point is well positioned. Here you are. The last thing we have is the solid layer that will come in with the motion graphic. I will come to solid and say new solid, and this color is fine. So yeah, it seems I already did it. Okay, and we have our solid layer. Take our solid layer and put it aside. Very fine. Now let's look at our layers here. We need to rename them. This is the rectangle, and this is the small square. Okay, this is our line separator, and we're on. I think so, at least. Here we are. We have done our layout, and in the next lecture we will start animating all this and making a nice motion graphic. See you then. Hi guys, this is Loy with you, and in this lecture we are going to animate our design here, our nice beautiful design. Notice that this design, you can use it for your own company. You change the words here, you put your own website, put your logo here, something like this, and you have your own introduction for a video, for YouTube, or even your own company on your own website. Cool, let's start animating. We'll start with motion graphics. Now in motion and graphics, I can use track mattes. I will need 2 of them. I can use masks also, and I need 2 masks, and it's complicated. So the best way is to pre-compose. I would not like you to notice this distance that I need to keep. I will right click and go to pre-compose, call it motion, let's say words. Yeah, that will do. Press enter. So I will double click on the composition here on pre-comp, and first of all we need to trim it, of course. So I will select the region of interest, come like we said to keep that distance, and open the region of interest, adjust it. The distance here seems okay. Fine, I will go to composition and crop comp to region of interest. Cool. Let's make it a bit smaller, for example 50%, so we can see it. I will get my selection tool, select my two layers, open the position, and let's say after half a second I will keyframe them, and in the beginning I will take them out. Now I don't want them out like this. You notice here we need to align them, so when they come, you know, graphics and motion are coming together. We will select all our keyframes, press F9, easy ease them, go to the graph and go to the speed graph, select both keyframes, be careful, and drag them in. And then here also select both keyframes and drag them in. I will select both keyframes here and make them longer in time. Cool. Let's see our animation. It's supposed to be cool. Nice. Let's go back to our pre-comp. Position the pre-comp in the right way. Here you are. So the words should be coming from the line. That's cool. Nope, a bit here. I'm using the left cursor. That's cool. So the next one we want to animate here is our rectangle or our square. We come to the square, we press P, Shift R, we want to rotate it and we want to scale it up. So coming here, let's say at 12 frames, 14 frames, I will keyframe all of them. Let's go back to the beginning. We take our rectangle outside, fine, and we'll give the rotation 1. So it's rotating coming in. Here it's rotating in the right direction. For the scale here, we give it, let's say 50%. And at the end, it will come at 100%. Cool. We will take all the keyframes, select them all, and press F9 to have an easy ease. I will go to the graph, and you see I can see everything here. Now there is an option where you can see only the graph. So you say show selected properties. So you see only the rectangle, you see only the scale, you see only the position, and you see only the rotation. But if you had this ticked, it will show you all of them at the same time, which is a bit annoying. Let's remove that. Let's go to scale, and we want to create a pop here, so we're gonna move it up, right, and it will come in, go back. Cool, that's pretty nice. Fine. For the rotation, we don't have much to do here. It's cool, I think. Let's run a RAM preview and see it. Cool, it sits in place. Fine, this is done. Let's work now with the question or exclamation mark. We open its scale, the question mark, and at the beginning we want it to be 0, of course. And then when the circle will settle, that is over here, so we'll move this 0 over here, right, or just before, and here we will make it 100%. Cool. And we select them both, press F9, we easy ease them, go to the graph, and let's also give it this jump or pop. We click here and we take it up like this. So it's up to you, but we don't want it to go bigger than the rectangle when it settles. Okay, that's fine. Let's run everything. Cool. Now we are left with AE online and our small rectangle here. So we have the square, we called it square here, and we have AE online. The square is going to open the AE school online. The square will go to the right. When it's on the right, it will open AE School Online. So obviously AE School Online will have a mask. Let's work with the square first. We'll come to the beginning here. I press alternate and scroll the mouse to zoom in. Move, press spacebar and move. So the square, let's open its position. Keyframe the position here. And then after some time, let's say 5-10 frames, let's zoom out so we know. Okay, over here, we want our square to be here. Okay, after some time also, we want our square to be here. Okay, so let's run the animation and see its speed. It's too speedy. I will select all the keyframes, press alternate and move it here. Move it to the right, so it will give me some space in between. I want the going to be slower than the coming back. Okay, that's fine. I will select AE School Online, come to the rectangle and draw a mask. So I masked it off. Fine. So what I want from the mask here, in the beginning, I will keyframe the mask. I want to see the keyframe of the rectangle. I will choose both layers, press U. Now we can see the keyframes. So at this point, from this point to this point, the mask should be just closed. Now this one, we need to take it a bit further behind. Cool. The mask should be totally closed. So I will take that keyframe and put it here, slap it on the timeline, and double click on the mask and simply close it. Okay, so when the square goes to the beginning, and when it reaches here, it has to open with the mask. So when it reaches the next keyframe, AE School Online, I will double click on the mask, it should open. Here you are. Let's run the animation and see, is it working? Fine, it's very nice. Now there is a trick here. When you start easying, then there will be somehow a change in speed, and hence there will be a change in how fast they are moving together. So the best way to overcome this is to select all the keyframes and easy ease all of them. I just put a small easy ease, a normal easy ease, and they're still working in the same time. That's pretty cool. Let's go back to 100% and see what is it that we didn't animate. We didn't animate this layer. So this layer has to come with motion graphics. So first, at this point, find the layer, open position. Let's keyframe the position here, and after some time here, it's gonna open and show us the motion graphic. But this layer should be at the bottom. You notice that we don't want it to cover anything. Okay, so it's keyframed here. Then we give it few seconds and we want to bring it to the end. Of course, now we need to time it, so in a certain way it comes with motion graphic. It doesn't overlap anything. First of all, let's give it an easy ease. Come to the graph here. Let's make it more interesting. I will take position, go to speed graph, and let's do something like this. Okay, so it comes slow, then it speeds up. Fine, let's open all our layers to look at them and select one of them, select all of them, Control A, and let's run our animation and start to time them. Okay, you notice there is a couple of mistakes. First of all, this line is not animated and the square is always there. So let's go to the line, open its scale, and we want to keyframe it here, move it, and at the beginning here, want to give it 0. Cool, so it opens, whoops, like this, but it has to be much speedier. File, we'll select both keyframes, press F9, and go to the graph. This is the speed graph now, and we'll do it like this. Okay, so it opens fast. Fine, let's go to the value graph and give it a pump, right? Just a small one, so it opens and so on. Fine. Now this is animated. The square here, we need to animate it. It's always showing, if you notice. So we'll open the square, we press U to see all its keyframes. We only have position. So we open the scale, Shift S. So we'll keyframe the scale here. That's the way it's supposed to be. Move the scale a bit further, and in the beginning put it 0. And you notice now it's gonna open and move at the same time. We don't want that. We're gonna open AE School Online, look at the keyframes for both of them, and notice we need to move all the keyframes, otherwise we will have a problem. So now it will show and then start moving. Cool, we've done it. Let's look at our animation. We need to time it. Okay, now that we have finished animating completely, let's look at our animation. Most probably everything is fine. We need to time them. We don't want them all to come in the same time, and we need to create that circle that we close everything. We will do that in the next lecture. Thanks for following up, and let's move to the next lecture to create the timing of all the layers. Hi guys, this lecture is follow up to our project, and we are going to align or time our layers so they don't open all together. The first thing we want to see is the line separator, so we leave it where it is. We go to motion word. Yes, we want it to come after the line separator, so press U for the line separator, and move motion here. That's okay. Now the square and the E-School Online have to appear at the end. Maybe I'll move them to the top and move them. Then we have the rectangle and the question mark. We move them together, and we want them to appear just when this is midway. Okay, from here, for example, and they start appearing all together and bouncing. After that, we want AE Online to start appearing, for example. Cool, this is too far. Let's move them here. Let's look at our animation. Yep, not bad. Now we want this layer here not to be appearing from the beginning, but we want it to start appearing just when motion graphic is appearing. We'll push it here. Notice it's very fast. Let's press U, take the keyframe and push them. Let's run our animation. Not bad. Cool. Very fine. So now we want to create the circle that will come, turn around, and then open up. I will choose the ellipse tool and press shift, and we have a nice circle here. Fine. Immediately take care of the anchor point of the layer. Put it in the middle of the circle. Change this color. It's not nice. And we want a bright color, for example. Yeah, this one will do well, for example. Okay, so it starts here. I will use the position. Press P, keyframe it, move down the timeline, move it, and move again down the timeline, move it here. You see, I'm creating a Bezier path. Move down the timeline, put it here. Move down the timeline and put it here. Move again and put it in the center. Then from here it will scale up. So I will open the scale, keyframe the scale here, whatever was the scale, let's say 100%, and from here I will pump the scale to close all the screen. Fine. In the beginning here, maybe I'll put the scale at 0, and if you run it solo by pressing the circle here, the round one, we notice that it's growing and coming and opening. Maybe we don't start from 0, let's start from 10%. Cool. So it will start like this. Fine. But of course, and you notice we have different speed on every segment of the motion path. We can come and adjust our motion path and make it more interesting. For example, make it more interesting. We move the keyframes, we move the handles, and you know, work on it. You can do it any way you want. I will be cool. Go to the last one, open. This is not nice. Let's move it. Okay. Or you can do anything you want, you know. Just make it the way you like. Fine. Now the problem here is the timing here is very speedy, slow, and so on. What I will do, I'll make them all the same speed for every single segment. I will select all the keyframes here. Right click on any keyframe, go to Keyframe Interpolation and use Rove Across Time. I click OK. You notice the keyframes have changed shapes. Now the one on the extremities are normal keyframes and the one in between are round. These are roving keyframes, meaning that the animation is having the same speed all over. Okay, then you can come and see it how it's happening. Cool. Of course, this layer we wanted to start at the end, this side, so people can see what we have written. It will start our animation. Let's remove the solo. Start our animation. Fine. Now it stops. I see the name of the website, and maybe it starts from here. Okay, let's press U and see if all our keyframes are in. We can push it furthermore. Let's run all our animation. Press F2, deselect everything. Pretty cool, I think. And it opens. It's coming too early. Let's do it like this. Not bad. Not bad. If you press F2, look at it. What you want to do now is to come in here and change all the words, make it yours 100%, change the colors. I think the circle is opening too fast. Let's give it more time. Yes, that will be fine. So it's up to you now to make it excellent and to use it. Notice that we have used very many techniques. It has taken a long time to explain, but it's worth it, and it will give you lots of experience on how to create your own openings. That's the second opening that we do. Later on, we'll do different things than opening. See you in the next lecture. Hi guys, this is Loai with you from aeschoolonline.com, and this is your challenge for this section about path and graphs. Now you want to do this animation and you want to do it the easy way. Think about shortcuts, think about duplication, how you can duplicate the layers. There will be work on the keyframes in the graph. It's a practical explanation of what you have learned, and it's very much in use. You will notice very many sites and very many channels on YouTube will do this kind of animation where it's smoothly coming in and coming to a stop very slowly with its bullets. Your logo here, you don't have to put your logo. You can write your message or even bring in your logo and put it inside here. And I will see you in the next lecture where I will show you how this is done, and hopefully you will work on it. Hopefully you will try your best. Now you don't have to stop here. You can go ahead and add some solids coming from down, or I don't know, some kind of graphics here, stars coming up and down, things like this. You know, just play around, just make sure that you are in command of the graphs and how to do smooth motions and how to manipulate motion path. See you in the next lecture. Hi guys, this was your challenge in the last lecture, and I hope you work on it. This is Loai with you from aeschoolonline.com. Now, I really do hope that you have worked on this one and tried to do the animation and do the smoothness that I proposed. It is not easy, it's not simple, but it is a practice that is important that you go ahead and do so you can gain the skills and, you know, cement them and move on to create much more complicated and much more beautiful animations. Let's start. We create a new composition. We call it challenge, for example. And then we create a small circle just here. We take care of the anchor point of the layer, of course. Fine, let's change the color here. I don't like the color. We make it a bit brighter, darker. Cool. Then you want to put your text. It was option 1. And then we align the text to the circle. Okay, fine. Let's animate these two. Circle is too big, make it small. Text is too small, make it bigger. We're on. Let's move them and put them on the side like this. Good. So let's animate these two. We will select both of them, open P. And after a few frames, for example 12 frames, we keyframe here, come back to the beginning, and we move them to the outside. That's one. Cool. Then we select the keyframes, press F9, we easy ease them, then select the two keyframes in the graph and open the handles or close the handles and make this very slow so we can really have a smooth movement coming in. I click, not bad, it's stretching, right, fine. Now how will I create the others? Well, there is a very simple way. Stop the animation, for example here. If I select both layers and press Ctrl D, then they will duplicate one on top of each other. That's not what we want. What we can do is select both layers and Ctrl C, then Ctrl V. Cool, now I have both layers. If I hold the layer and I move it, you notice the motion path is gonna move, and this is exactly not what we want. So what I will do, I will open both layers, press U, and I put the timeline indicator on one of the keyframes. Any keyframe will do, as long as it's on a keyframe. Notice now the timeline indicator is on a keyframe for each layer. That's very fine. I can take the position and just change the value. Now it didn't work. Why? Because I did not select all the keyframes. So I will undo this one. I will select the position, control, and select the second position. I could have used shift. Now, the timeline indicator is on both keyframes here. Both keyframes are on the timeline indicator. And I have selected all the keyframes. All I have to do is to scrub the position. And you notice it's moving the whole path with it. That's quite cool. You know, let's give it more distance. And actually, you can give any one of them the distance that you want. Now, very fine. I will select both layers again and Ctrl D. No, not Ctrl D, Ctrl C and Ctrl V. I have them both here. I press U. I put the timeline indicator on the keyframes, select both positions so it selects all the keyframes. Of course, I could have come here and selected all the keyframes, but the habit of clicking on position is much better because if you have some keyframes that you don't see here, then you make sure they are selected. Then scrub down with the position, and here you are, you created your animations in a matter of seconds. If I were not explaining to you, this would have taken just seconds. Fine. Now it's quite nice. We have shape layer 1 and its bullet, and shape layer 2 and its bullet. What we want to do is to move them. We are going to move the bullet or the text to come after the bullet, and the same here, we move both of them, let's say here, and then the text comes after the bullet. The same we can do with these ones, move them here. This is timing the layers. Of course, we can do anything that you want to do. Fine, let's look at it now. Cool. You see how I did it here? Like if you memorize this one or get the style of this one, you will always get this effect of all coming like this. You know, balayage we say in French. I don't know if you know that I'm French. Okay, let's draw here our circle. We come to the end so we see how much space we have. We select our ellipse tool, we click here and move it. Okay, that's fine. In the original one there was more space. We change the color, for example, something brighter. Cool, and we add some cool, that's done. Now I want to write your text, so I'll click here, write your, in fact your logo. I'll just make it one logo and make it smaller, of course, and then move it to the middle. Okay, the keyframe has to be in the middle. Where is it? Yeah, it is. And the circle keyframe also, let's put it in the middle. Now we move them, align them. If it's not aligning with you, you can come to the align and align them center and center, and here you are. Now you can move both of them anywhere you want. Okay, that's good. It didn't come out as nice as the first one, but it will do the job for now. Now you want to animate with the scale the circle. I press S. I will come at the beginning of the layer, then I will adjust the layer. Click on the stopwatch to start the animation, move it a bit, click again and give it, for example, 0. Then I will select both keyframes, then open the graph. Of course, I want to have the value graph. Let's zoom in a bit. Now they are still non-Bezier, so I'll press F9 to make them Bezier. Come back to the graph, hold it, and just move up a bit to give him this, to give it the bounce. Fine. So now let's run our animation. Okay, I did not animate your logo. So what I will do, I will open the scale for your logo, come to the scale of the shape layer, just click here, and okay, I have selected both keyframes. Press Ctrl C, come to the scale, make sure your timeline indicator is whatever you want to paste, and you paste the 2 keyframes. Look how nice, how much time you have saved. If you play it now, here you are. And they have the same graphs. Okay, if you come to the scale here, you notice that's giving it the same graph. So that Ctrl C, Ctrl V is very useful here. So these 2 layers, we want to shift them. I will move them here, for example. Let's play all our animation. And here you are, it's done. Of course, you can animate it the way you want, wherever you want your logo to appear or when you want your logo to appear. Since this is a scale, you can just move it around to where you want. Okay, you can put it here, anywhere, let's say here, and you have your animation. So this was your challenge, and notice how easy it was. I explained to you how to duplicate and how to move without changing the motion path. These are small tricks, but they are very important for you to be able to do very fast, nice motion graphic. If I was doing this by myself, and you, after you finish that course, or you got 60% of this course, I assure you, you can do this animation in less than 30 seconds. Okay, thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next section.